Hey, this is Professor Game, where we interview successful practitioners of games, gamification, and game thinking who bring us the best of their experiences to get ideas, insights, and inspiration that help us in the process of getting the students to learn what we teach. And I'm Rob Alvarez. I work at IE Business School Publishing, where we create interactive and engaging learning materials. Do you have something you'd like some help with? Ask our guests. Go to professorgame.com/question and get your question answered in a future episode. Engagers, guess who we have today? It's Bart Hufen. And Bart, the first question is, are you prepared to engage?
Yes, sure.
So Bart is the author of A Brand New Playground and Playing in the Job. In these books, he focuses on the power of game mechanics and how they can be applied to organizations to achieve a continuous improvement. He's also been a steady force in the Global Gamification Gurus Top 100 and is certainly one of the founders of the gamification and game thinking in Europe. His track record with his company BrandNewGame holds over 20 often award-winning digital game innovations, and the solutions he provides for his clients are always developed using a proven agile method that Bart has developed himself. So this method is also part of the curriculum at the University of Amsterdam and the Gamification Academy, which is something I'm sure we'll get into in this interview as well. He has an average score of 8.7, and he is a highly valued speaker both in the Netherlands and abroad, and that's definitely true, Bart. So is there anything that we're missing from that incredible intro?
Yeah, it's so humble, isn't it? It's probably one thing I learned from the Americans, that you shouldn't be too shy about your successes, or at least your achievements. But it's not really typical Dutch to speak about yourself like that, or to hear it back is almost embarrassing. But maybe I should be proud of the things we've done in the past 10 years. So.
It's good. I mean, pride is something, it's a part of the gamification. You know, you have to be proud of what you're creating. That's a way to engage people. And when you're proud of what you're doing, you're more engaged with it. So I'm sure all that ownership over what you've done makes you more proud and gets you to do excellent work.
Yeah, sometimes, but I think in Holland it's okay to be proud when you have a glass of whiskey all by yourself, right? Not to brag about it to the world, like, look what I've done. But still, I think I should be proud and happy at all, like that we achieved such great things in the past 10 years
Exactly.
for our clients.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
So Bart, the first thing that we want to know is, what does a regular, or if there is such a thing as a regular day, look like? If we're going to hang out with Bart Hufen for a day, what does it look like?
Yeah, that was funny, because indeed my first response was, I don't have regular days, but if you look at my week, let me first of all say, I recently wrote a blog about that as well, that I try to work now 24/7. And by 24/7, I mean I try to work 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. And it's inspired by Tim Ferriss, I think is the author of the 4-hour work week. I read it 5 years ago or something, or no, longer ago, but it inspired me. And it's also inspired by the fact I almost drove my car off the highway 2 years ago. So then made me realize maybe I should take it a bit more easy these days. So what I do, I plan all my activities as a process. So I try to come up with circular things, and I defined a golden loop for myself that has brought me the success in the past 9 years, which basically consists of 3 entities. So one of them is publications. So I do publications every week, or I try to do that. And with publications, I mean writing a blog, or sending out a DM, a direct message, or doing something on social media, LinkedIn preferably, doing interviews like today, and writing books, of course, although I emphasize on blogs because
I hope you don't do a book a week.
Exactly. So I try not to do a book a week. No. Yeah, and I'm not a writer. I mean, I don't feel I'm a writer or an author, but it's something that helps me to do publications. So doing publications gets me into doing presentations, like for Gamification Europe, obviously, but I also do a lot of talks nationally and internationally on different congresses or conferences like HR or agile conferences, even South by Southwest some years ago. So presentations is obviously also a very good way to attract potential leads. And finally, I do a lot of projects thanks to my publications and presentations for companies that actually pay the bills, because publications, writing a book, unless you're a best-selling author that sells like 100,000 copies, will not get you into the lazy seat. Neither does presentations, but it's a really good way to get attention for everything you've done. So once I've done a project, I hopefully can write a publication again about it, which invites me again to some presentations, etc. So that's my golden loop. And currently we're expanding, so not only publications, presentations, and projects, but we're developing a platform these days. So another P, a project or product, actually, a platform that will have certain gamification products in itself.
Can you talk a bit about that platform? I know we're taking a bit of a sideways, but we were talking about it in the pre-interview chat, and it sounded like something interesting and that perhaps many people in the engagers will be interested in.
Yeah, so I've been working on gamification since 2009, and I always intended to remain a very small company. So still, there's only one Bart Hufen within BrandNewGame, but I have a partner these days, so we're with two. But all the projects we've done, I always did with either freelance people or small agencies. And the frustration for me was we've done brilliant things for companies like Vodafone, NN Eurasia, so a big insurance company, Food Locker Europe and such. But the agencies I worked with always wanted to invent something new each time we had a similar request. So, for instance, if we did something for a call center, for company A, and then we did something for a call center for company B, they wanted to develop something completely different. And I always tried to develop like one product that we could launch over and over again and then scale up, obviously. But that was really hard. But now I finally found a guy who was also 44 like myself, who is a kick-ass programmer who builds everything in HTML. So we've been working the past 18 months on our own platform that we will launch at the end of this year, which basically focuses on people of companies being able to build up a profile based on their expertise and talents, and solving problems for other people within the company that struggle with certain things. And it sounds a bit vague, I know, but I can show you guys more obviously during Gamification Europe. But it's basically a really simple tool that just enables people to work together in a different way.
So it's in a way it's some sort of platform to create gamification, or is it broader? Is it narrower? What, in that sense, where does it stand?
Our goal is basically to create a culture of collaboration. So we want to change the way people work nowadays. And it sounds really like a big, hairy, audacious goal, but it is also. But if you look at how we've been working the past 20 years, it's really corrupt. So we are using email to communicate with each other, for instance. And we're putting a lot of people in CC to inform everyone. And we as an organization, we are like organized in hierarchic models, which is really outdated. It doesn't work like that anymore. These days, you need to work differently, more fluently, more flat, I would say, like a flat organizational structure. And it's also something you could compare to Agile or Scrum. And in Holland, there's a really big market for it nowadays. And I think also globally, because I know Scrum.org quite well, and I see that they're really expanding. So what we're building basically cuts through department structure. It cuts through everything It just enables people who have similar jobs to post challenges or to post quests and to search for expertise and talents. And the system helps you to find those people and to engage them surrounding your problem.
Wow, that sounds very, very interesting. It sounds as well like there's some other people who are doing similar things, but I know you have your special twist in that sense with all your background in gamification and all your experience. I know it's going to be something very special. So if anybody's interested in knowing more about that project that you're going through, Bart, where can they go?
Well, obviously the website or Twitter or LinkedIn. So there's only one Bart Hufen in the world, so I'm still easy to find. And I would say email, but obviously I hate email. So rather Twitter or LinkedIn, reach out to me. BrandNewGame.com will give you my contact details anyhow. So.
Fantastic. So having that out of the way now, we're always into, there's this question. This is a question I enjoy very much, and I've got some interesting feedback as well about it. And it's about a story of what you would call your favorite fail or first attempt in learning. Yep. That's the story we want to get into. And of course, what can we learn and what can we take away from such an experience that you had?
Yeah. Well, there's two that come to mind, actually. I prepared one, and I can quickly go through that. It sounds arrogant, but I don't have that many failures in the past 10 years, I think. I'm luckily enough, but also maybe because we have developed our own way of doing things, like our own process, and we actually claim, if a client wants to start working with us, we claim that they work according to our gamification compass, so that we don't have any issues of problems or unclarity during the process. So I'm quite how do you say, maybe a Mussolini like that I say, this is the process. We're not going to change the process. So this is the way it goes. And if you want to stop at any point, that's fine. So you can stop at any point. But my biggest failures obviously were assumptions. So a project we did 5 years ago for what is it called? Not a university, but a University of Applied Science. We developed a game concept that had a leaderboard and a lot of competition elements in it. And I think the concept itself was quite good, because this is still the foundation of our own platform, which we launch in the future. But we made the assumption that boys and girls on a university would enjoy to see leaderboards and to see their progress out in the open. So everyone could see how well teams were performing. And we found out actually after lunch that the boys indeed liked it. So most of the guys thought it was cool, because they like to prank and they like to, brag a bit to each other. But the girls really disliked it. So they stopped playing really quickly. And there were multidisciplinary teams, so there were boys and girls in same teams sometimes. But we found out after lunch that the women saw it as a turn-off. So that was one big failure, I think.
What would you, before we dive quickly into the next one, what would you say is something that if you were going to approach a similar project, or if you were approaching a situation like that, or you walked into the past and say, what would you consider? What would be that one or two things that you would say, well, I would start this way, or I would have this perspective before we get started?
Yeah, we should have tested it better, but this is a typical example of having not enough budget at all going in. But I really wanted to land this client and to start this project. So we said yes to something that we knew we didn't have enough budget anyhow. So then we chose to do some assumptions. But yeah, obviously it's better to iterate more and to quickly launch the first game loop you invent and see if it works, see what the feedback is, and then take it to the next level, etc. But yeah. So
iteration, I'm gathering, would be one of the main things that you would try to avoid not having. If that makes any sense.
Exactly. But it was a budget issue.
Okay. So precisely in that sense of stories and of things that you've been learning throughout all these years of experience, we would like to hear a story. Here, perhaps it could have been initially a failure or not, but something that you would say, this is a result that we're proud of. This is something that we can almost show off. That we were also talking about this in the pre-interview, about how showing off can be appropriate or not. It depends on your perspective, as usual. But something that you approached, a big challenge that you faced, and you said, well, we can solve this using our process, our gamification, our game thinking. And what were the nice results you got, and what can we take from your story?
We once had one of our biggest clients was a sneaker retailer in Europe. I can't mention their name because they don't really appreciate it if we talk about them in public. But you can guess. Problem. You can guess, but it's one of the biggest sneaker retailers. And they started with a briefing by showing me a video of one sales guy in Italy. And they said, look at this guy. He's a fantastic sales guy. Look at how he's playing with the clients in the store. And he's really owning the store like he should, like a store manager should. And he wasn't even the store manager. And they said, our briefing to you is, we want everyone to sell like this guy sells. Okay.
Challenge.
So,
interesting.
That was an interesting challenge. So I went to the office, and it set me thinking, and I let it land a few days. And then I thought, like, it's impossible for a Dutch guy or a German or a Swedish or another guy to sell like an Italian. I mean, we're a different type of blood. Maybe a Spanish guy would do it like an Italian guy, but still, obviously, everyone is different and everyone has unique talents and capabilities. So it's impossible to say we want everyone to be like this guy. So we came up using our process eventually to a game concept that said, let's make something that's stupid simple, because in the end, 860 store managers should play this game without our help. So we can show them once, but then they have to play it alone with their people in their stores. So we came up with a game called Talent Hold'em. And the idea was basically that you play it with 5 people, you get a stack of talent cards, and you start out with 5 cards, random cards. And every turn you have to discard 1 card and grab 1 card from the stack. So you continue doing that until the stack is gone. And then you discuss the 5 talents you held on to, and you say how you use those talents in your store to do your sales conversation. This way, inspiring other people on the table who, for instance, are not very funny, but could be helped by at least 1 joke or 1 funny thing to use in any conversation they have in their sales moment. So we came up with that, and I think in a lot of stores they're still using it. And recently, actually, I heard feedback from a guy that went to this store and said, "Yeah, I went to this store in Den Haag, and they were playing around with stuff, and they were juggling and doing stuff I've never seen it before." And I was like, "Hey, I'm here to buy shoes, man. What the hell's going on?" And I said, "Well, maybe that's because we taught them a year and a half ago to play around more in their store with people using their talents." So that's cool.
Very interesting.
And I always say it's a really stupid, simple card game. So there's nothing intelligent or, it's not digital even. And most of the time we develop digital tools, but it works. I think it worked really well.
That's beautiful. That's, again, I always jump when we get these kinds of examples. I jump in back and always remind the engagers that gamification can have fantastic digital solutions, and it can have fantastic non-digital solutions. A card game, a board game, a game that you talk to people directly and give the instructions away that way. I mean, there's many ways in which games and gamification can work. And it can be digital, it can be in any other format as well, and it can work fantastically, as in Bart's example here with this very famous, apparently, sneaker retailer.
Yeah.
So, Bart, we've been going around the subject of how do you do this gamification for a while, but we would like to know if as much as you can disclose about your process. So you grab a project, there's a challenge that you want to solve, whether that's in a university with education, whether that's in a retail store, whether that's with employee engagement in general, and you do something with that. Do you have like some sort of process that you follow when you're creating your gamification or these game thinking solutions?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's also something we came up with, I guess, after 3 years of working, that I thought, man, I need a better process, because not a lot of our clients have a good briefing, actually. So I used to work in advertising, and there you would get a 5-page briefing and a brand key and a lot of stuff. And then you go to your creative team and you brief them, and then they go in a room for 3 weeks, and then they come up with something that you brief, but not really matches with what you actually said in the beginning. So and another thing is that games are such complex systems. I mean, I'm not a game designer from school. I mean, I used to study something else. It was technical. I did program in my past, but it was like 20 years ago. So I thought, okay, what clients need to do is also talk about things they don't want to talk about, actually. So that's like the black thing, or the dark side, you could say, in companies. So if you have Star Wars as a theme, you have to talk about Luke Skywalker, but also about Darth Vader. And not a lot of clients are happy to talk about things that people should unlearn, so to speak. And the reason why we developed this whole process, and actually a game called the Game Storm, is because one of my first clients wanted us to develop a game around their code of conduct, right? And a code of conduct is about what you can and cannot do within an organization. So it's about intimidation. It's about sexual harassment. Hashtag Me Too. It's about theft, in-company theft. And when I interviewed people, everyone said, no, everything is fine here. It's a beautiful company to work for. And no, there's nothing wrong. No, obviously, sometimes things disappear, but it's not a big issue. And it took me literally about 20 interviews or about a month of work before I got into the dirty stuff. So before I got into, if you ask me again, sometimes we have some theft in the company, and things disappear now and then, and maybe it's 6% of our P&L actually that disappears. But it took me such a long while to get there that I said, okay, we need to come up with something. So I'm sorry for the long introduction, but here we go. So what we do, we have a canvas, which is you can find it online, so it's not a secret. I'm not afraid to disclose our way of work, and we actually educate people in our Gamification Academy. So
love that.
So we train them. And it starts obviously with the objective for the company. So there is a decision-making unit that says, hey, I want people to sell more, or hey, I want people to act accordingly our code of conduct, or I want people to experience our brand values, for instance. So we start with that. But obviously, it's really vague most of the time. So it is selling more. I say, okay, what's selling more? So we approach it like an onion, and we use the game storm to peel the onion until we get to the core. And for me, the core always is behavior. So what should people start doing? What should people stop doing? Because that's what we'll take in our game concept. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other spectrum, or the other end, is actually the user. Because the employers, most of the time we work for employees, the employers or the employees, they don't really care about those brand values or about selling more or about whatever. So we need to find out what drives and motivates them, to find out which mechanics will use or will work effectively in the game concept that will develop. And we actually use the PlayGen card game. I don't know if you know it. It's from a company in the UK called PlayGen, and we use their game seeds. It's quite nice to work. So we find out what drives and motivates people and which mechanics could be useful. And then in between, obviously, is the game concept that has content in it. So we think about the context, like when and where will people play this game? Is there a theme that we should apply? And then what type of content could work really effectively?
So Bart, after all this disclosure that we've had, where can we? You mentioned that these were quite open. The onion. Is there a place where we can find more information about that part of the process?
Yeah, I think on our website, BrandNewGame.com, it must be somewhere. And otherwise, if you Google Gamification Canvas, I'm sorry I have to be so vague. Let me quickly check if it's online.
Gamification Canvas. I think there was a presentation a couple of years ago about a gamification canvas that they developed. Trying to remember, I think, it was probably with Sergio Jimenez, the organizers of Gamification World Congress.
Yeah, and if you go to the slides, if you use SlideShare, I have a lot of presentations on SlideShare, and on our own website, you can also download all the slides I use in our own gamification workshop. So there's a lot of stuff online, and I give it all away because I'm not shy about that. I think it's good to share stuff because it's still an emerging industry.
Definitely, absolutely, and that's why we have this podcast, because we're big believers in the sharing of the information. That there's so many things that we can still achieve through gamification. So many more people are needed to achieve a better world in many aspects. You're looking for a better work environment. We're especially striving towards a better education system and the way we learn things in education in general. So there's many areas still to be developed, as you say.
Yeah. And I think the world could be more fun and functional. Still, it's somewhere in some way we're still working like 20 years ago, but it should really change quickly.
Definitely.
So, if I may, let me quickly put it out there that in September and March we will train people again in our gamification workshop. So it's like a 2-day workshop, and we sell tickets through Eventbrite.
Is it live or is it online as well?
It's 100% live, because I really believe in live, being together, seeing, feeling the people, and doing it. It's in Amsterdam, and this time it actually in September it's at Schiphol Airport, because they will host it for us.
Engagers, quick break from this interview. If you love what gamification can achieve, then you will love going to a gamification conference. And this year, we got a 10% discount for the Engagers to assist to Gamification Europe 2018 in Amsterdam. All you have to do is get your tickets for the conference at professorgame.com/gamificationeurope. That's our affiliate link. It was an incredible experience in 2017, full of chances to learn and interact with the top experts. If you think you want to make it, get your tickets sooner rather than later. Their prices are only going up and tickets might run out. So click pause and go to professorgame.com/gamificationeurope to get your tickets discounted today and also support Professor Game. So now, Bart, we're going to move into this part of the interview where we'll ask you questions that are less oriented towards the story and more perhaps towards tips, perhaps quick answers. It's a sort of a different vibe in this section of the interview. And the first thing that we would like to know is if there's anything that you think any gamification or game thinking or gameful approach project could benefit from. That could be many things, but what do you think is maybe that element, not a golden or silver bullet, but something that if you add it or you include it in your project, it would be something that would always benefit a project?
Well, two things I wrote down for myself. One is really listening well and trying to find out what people mean by what they say, because it's easy to say if someone says, yeah, I want to sell more. Okay, let's do something that you can sell more. But actually, if you ask more and more and more and more, you'll find out that maybe they don't need to sell more. They need to uplift their service level, for instance. Or they need to learn to ask questions themselves. So it's easy to immediately do what the client asks you to do, but it's better to find out what he really needs. And that's in our case actually why we developed the Game Storm, because you dive deeper and deeper and deeper. A quick method is to ask the question how or why for 5 times.
Yeah, the 5 whys.
Yeah, exactly. But so that's one. And I think the second one I learned in the past 9 years working with game designers is that a lot of game designers tend to forget about the primary question in a while. So as soon as they start developing a concept and getting in their brainstorm, they forget, they come up with a really cool or funny game concept. So yeah, the game is maybe really cool in the end, but they forgot that it needs to do something. For instance, teach people the code of conduct. So they lose themselves in their creativity, developing something that's really creative, instead of focusing on the functionality.
The final objective. And where I work, my day job at IE Business School, actually we're going to be giving a workshop as well in another conference. And one of the things that we always remember the people, because we're more into especially the higher education side, it's something when we are creating interactive and engaging learning materials that we do at IE Business School, what we do is we remind people constantly, and we have to remind ourselves, because that's something that's not those guys and us that are different. We're humans and we're people. That this happens to us, but what we need to be constantly reminded of, in our case, is of the learning objectives. What do you want the people to learn with this material? It's not just to get people to have fun, which is something that you use to get to that objective. It's rather, what are you trying to teach? Oh, you want to make sure that the people learn, the IAS 36 standard for accounting. Okay, you have to remember that throughout the whole material, and how whatever it is that you're doing is building on top of that learning objective. So exactly that one. And when it's a business objective, what is a business objective? What are you trying to achieve? It's not just about fun. So fantastic. Those are fantastic recommendations.
To be really honest, that's the hardest part about gamification as such, because to be honest, I don't even believe in gamification, but I find out now in practice that it actually works sometimes, but not all the times. But it's really, really hard, because it's easier to develop a game that's just fun, and it's easier to develop something that's purely functional. But the combination of those two is really, really hard work.
Yes, definitely is. And in that sense, precisely talking about games, Bart, what would you say is your favorite game?
Yeah, that's the hardest question of them all. So I can't say my favorite. Yeah, I have to say Cossacks. It's a really old game, but I still play it. I downloaded it through goodoldgames.com. Cossacks is like a real-time strategy game where you just need to, you need to yell farmers around to build stuff. But I also love the Fallout franchise. So Fallout 76 is coming out soon, and I just bought a PlayStation 4 solely for Red Dead Redemption 2 because I'm really waiting for that game. And finally, Hearthstone. I played with my wife to be, so we played together.
Fantastic. And is there any person, Bart, that you would like to hear interviewed in an interview like this one in Professor Game?
Yes, but I couldn't come up with a name. But I think what would be really interesting is to interview clients as well, because it's always about the so-called experts like myself. But I think it's much more interesting also to listen what clients have to say. But they're a bit, to be honest, my clients are all shy of opening up. I don't know why.
It's funny because most of the people that come to the interviews when they're doing client work, most of them say, well, like you said, I can't say the name. Yeah. We have these NDAs that I fear that if I talk about this to my wife, maybe I'll end up in prison. So clients are actually like on the opposite extreme of this.
Yeah. And I can direct your audience to YouTube if they check out the talk from Regina Terra. She works for a really big insurance company. It used to be ING Insurance. You'll probably know ING Bank. But they did a talk at the Gamification Summit in Turkey last year in Istanbul. So she talks candidly and openly about what we produced for them. But I'm very keen on asking my clients at Vodafone, for instance, to talk about what we've done for them. But they're really shy about that, also because it's company policy not to, etc.
Yeah, exactly. So Bart, you don't have a favorite person you would like to listen to interview in this podcast, but maybe you do have a favorite book that you would like to recommend to the engagers.
Yeah, it's not a game book as such, but a book that I really enjoyed reading is the book called Bold, B-O-L-D. And it's basically about the Silicon Valley industry. And I was blessed to read it because it has a lot of research behind it. And they claim the same things I claimed in my last book. So I'm happy that they did the research because I just from my hips. But it's all confirmed. So that's a good thing. So yeah, I really like it.
You can re-edit your books to say, well, these guys did the research and I'm saying
exactly.
this. Yeah. You can reference them.
I'll humbly ask them. My last book, by the way, is only in Dutch available yet, but I'll hope to translate it next year.
Nice. Looking forward to that. Bart, what would you say within this whole gamification and game designs and all these things that we've been talking about, what would you say is your sweet spot or your superpower?
I don't really have superpowers. I think I'm a generalist, so I know a bit of everything. So I know a bit of coding, and I know a bit of design, I know a bit about art. So I would have to say that my strong point is the fact that I understand business because I used to work for Diesel and Atari in the past. So I know the game industry, I know the fashion industry, and I know advertising. And I understand my clients really well, but I also understand creative people really well. So I think that's my sweet spot.
Bringing everybody together.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. So, Bart, as you will be an upcoming speaker in Gamification Europe, where actually Professor Game is one of the media sponsors of the conference, we would like for you to motivate us to go to the conference as well. We are going. Many of the engagers, I'm sure, are going as well. But there might be some people still on the fences and waiting to see who are these interesting people who are going to be speaking at Gamification Europe. What's your talk going to be about? What would motivate us to go to you to listen to you specifically?
Well, I can say it will be a very honest talk about the past decade of starting up my own company and how to gain clients, for instance, and also about my own golden loop. Like I said in the beginning, I do three things really well, and that's like a cycle for me. So I do publications, I do presentations, and that's why I can do projects and write again about the project as in the publication and then present again. So I try to do that like a German engine, and that's the thing I focus on, those three activities. The rest is not interesting.
So you're going to be talking in Gamification Europe about how you do that. What are what have been your learnings, your secrets, so to speak, within that process, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and create your content to be found, because in the end, the biggest clients I got approached me in the end, and that's only because I've been planting seeds over and over and over and over for the past 10 years.
So engagers, if gamification is something that you want to apply to if you're in education and you're applying it to your daily life, I'm sure there's many things that you can learn about this project as well to understand how all these pieces move together for you to be discovered, but also to be able to collaborate with other people who are doing this, or even to develop projects for not only for your school or your university, but something that perhaps can transcend your own current frontiers. But if you're also interested into getting into gamification, or are already into the gamification consultancy or working in a gamification company, this is something that can be extremely interesting for you as well. How to get, this is basically the secret sauce that Bart is giving us out here to how he gets his clients. So that I'm sure that is something that you could be interested in, both from an educational perspective to be able to collaborate with people around the world, or even, again, create gamification projects for education that transcend your frontiers. Like at IE Business School, we're creating materials that we use not only in our school, but that we're selling to a worldwide audience of other business schools who are using it all around the world. So it's something interesting, definitely, for us. I'm sure it could be there are many cases in which you, within the educational world, can be using that. But of course, if you're into the gamification world looking for clients, this is like gold, a golden mine. This guy over here has been doing this for 9 years, and he's even had some success. A lot of success. So I would like to invite you to go to Gamification Europe. This is a very interesting talk as well. There's other very interesting people who will be around. And of course, as you've heard many times during this podcast, not necessarily this episode, but throughout the past weeks, we've been talking about how to go and get your tickets if you haven't gotten them. So there's a special link that has been created for us. We have a redirection from our webpage, which is if you go to professorgame.com/gamificationeurope, all one word, you'll get a 10% discount for the conference, and you'll be able to benefit from this discount and also be supporting Professor Game's mission, which is to create this podcast and to keep it free as it will always be. So, Bart, is there any final piece of advice that you would like to leave the engagers with? And then please let us know where we can find you, and then we'll say it's game over.
Yeah, sure. No, so I wrote down that especially a word to clients or potential clients, that I think they will always have to see it as a strategy, not as a thingy. Like, I always try to be honest in my first conversation I have with prospects, that if they see it as a one-trick pony that will solve all their problems, forget about it. So you need to take it really seriously if you want to do things with gamification. So that's, I think, always the nice contradiction. So it can be really functional and it's really fun, but take it seriously.
That reminds me, my dad, I used to be an actor in high school. And I used to be like a pretty serious, young man. So he said, and he was relatively serious, but he had a very dark humor as well. And he said, some people sometimes confuse, you having a serious face with you being a serious person. And, you can take things seriously and still have fun, still enjoy things. So I think that seeming contradiction is, at least in my life, has never been so. You can have fun and have a serious face or take things very seriously without being, the hard-faced person who's never enjoying, never having fun. So taking things seriously, taking it to heart, and having a lot of fun is definitely not a contradiction. So I love that final piece of advice, Bart.
Yeah.
So Bart, where else can we find you? Do you want to, of course, drop your webpage, Twitter, LinkedIn?
Yeah.
This is the the plug section.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if you're interested in more material, check out YouTube. Obviously, there's only one Bart Hufen, as I said, so it's Hufen. Check our website, BrandNewGame.com or GamificationAcademy.com. And like I said, we're actively looking for people around the globe that want to set up their own academy. So we have a curriculum, we have a lot of materials. So if anyone's interested in starting their own academy with our support, let me know either now, in the future, or during the event, of course. And LinkedIn is my favorite way to reach out. So,
the one and only Bart Hufen, not Simpson. And
Nope.
you will definitely be able to find Bart in LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
So thank you, Bart, for your time. We know your time, as everybody else's, is very, very valuable. So we thank you for these 40-something minutes that you've dedicated to the engagers, to giving away all your interesting stuff, and to talk about what you've been doing over the past years. We also thank you for your talk that we know is going to be amazing in Gamification Europe. So we hope to meet personally there and to meet many of the engagers. And however, now it's time to say it's game over.
Oh. Thanks so much. It was really fun.
Thank you.
All right. Ciao.
Engagers, it's fantastic to have you here. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Bart. Are you using Instagram? I'm finally posting regularly and would love to connect with you there. Just like on Twitter, my username is RobAlvarezB. And before you go into your next mission, would you like to get to know the grandfather of gamification? Then subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there!